Hi and welcome back to In the Chair. I'm Imogene Nix. You know me. I'm going to introduce the wonderful Sassie Lewis.
Hello, people. And then she's going to go back and tell us what we're talking about today.
The exotic Suzi, love. And the fantabulous Keri Arthur. Now, today we're going to be talking about all those lovely little things that we as authors have to wade our way through. Contracts. Sometimes we'll sign a contract and things don't go quite to plan. Sometimes we realise after the fact that the contract isn't as good as we'd hoped. It might have some really bad clauses in it. We might need to try and get out of it. Sometimes you lose a contract because, you get dropped by your house, which is really sucky. Or the other thing too is sometimes if you're self-publishing and you upload your titles to, say, a distributor and the distributor closes and you lose out. So today we're going to be looking at all of those sorts of things and how we as authors see various different ways of protecting yourself. So I'm actually going to open the floor today with Suzi Love. Suzi.
Yes, I was with a publisher and there was a very large group of us who started more or less the same time with them. We all did a lot of research. We checked out all the accreditation, and this particular one had a background of being with a publisher who'd been in the industry for 100 years. So we thought, okay, we're pretty good here. We all asked questions of the lady taking the submissions. We really researched, and yet still we came unstuck because the publisher, as soon as we started putting books out, introduced new ideas like starting a subscription service where readers paid $9.99 for a month and could read all of the books. And within a few months, there was about 300 books that they could read, and we were getting paid at the rate of about 1 cent a read. And when we complained, they said, well, you can't do anything because it's not actually in your contract, so you can't fight it. So that was a sneaky one that they snuck in, and we said, well, how could we know to fight it if it wasn't there, not spoken about? We specifically asked 100 questions, blah, blah, blah. So we didn't win with that one. So in the end, many of us, including me, hired a lawyer. Cost me $700 US to fight it and get my 2 books back. But if I'd still been there, I would have still been banging my head against a brick wall and still been worse off. So I spent $700 on one hand and got my rights back and could do what I liked on the other. So it was a toss-up. But it just went to show that even though we'd all read our contract, we'd asked so many questions, there's still sneaky little things that a publisher can do to you. You've just got to be aware all the time.
Yeah.
Sassie?
One bit of advice I can give all authors is get somebody else to read your contract for you. Or take a business course. Contractual law is one of the most complicated ones that I'm aware of because there are so many subclauses, so many little loopholes that slip through that you aren't aware of. And the moment you start talking law, a word that you might understand in one context means something totally different when it comes to the law. Research your publishers. Don't dive in because you think, oh, they're one of the top 5, or I've heard about this, I've seen heaps of books of this. Speak to the authors that are published with that company. Speak to everyone you can, not just a couple, not just your friends, not just the big names, because usually the big names in that publishing house are the ones that are getting treated the best. So that publishing house is going to bend backwards to appease that author. Find the smaller authors, talk to them. That's how I met the lovely Immy. We had talked a few times, but when I was looking at my first manuscript, and we really got chatting about my contract and submitting my book and who to go to and all that. And I loved working with Beachwalk. I learned so much from them. So, yeah, but contracts are a bitch. Don't just jump in, and be really wary of who you're going to sign with. Make sure that they're going to offer you what you want. Because if they really want you, they will work with you, not just say, this is our standard contract, you've got to sign it. Well, no. I'm an individual author, these are my needs. And they will, and if they're good and they want you, they will tailor it, they will fit you. Just if you don't know anything about contractual law, biggest thing, if you can't afford a lawyer to look over it, get other authors to look over it for you. Because there are authors out there that sign contracts after contracts after contracts that will know more and know what they're looking for, or know what's actually missing from the contract. Because that's a big one. What is missing from that contract? So, yeah. Keri.
Well, I think I agree that you need someone, either an agent or a contract lawyer, to look over your contract. I think now more than ever it is vital because the contracts are getting worse, not better. But I think you also have to be wary of, like, if you're selling a book to an American publisher, you need an American contract lawyer to look at it, because the language between, you think it's the same, but it's not. There's different conditions in America than there is in Australia. So in Australia, you need an Australian contract lawyer or agent. In America, you need to get an American one, or the same with the UK. You've got to understand what you're signing and what you're giving away. Even if you think the rights don't matter, they will matter down the track. Yeah. Speaking from personal experience here. Even the tiniest clause you think no one will ever look at that, they will down the track. And then there's nothing you can do because you're signed. So you've got to be very, very wary.
I know from experience, I signed a contract. When I signed the first contract, I thought it was a decent contract. What I didn't realise after the fact was when I got to the very last book I signed to that publisher, they had actually made a material change in their contract. And I will be the first to admit I didn't read it thoroughly when I should have. I am continuing to deal with it myself. I probably could have gone and got someone to get me out of the contract, but to be perfectly frank, I could either pay a sum of money or I could wait it out. And even with the waiting it out, there were certain steps that I had to take. I think what we as authors need to do is we need to educate ourselves. Yes, we do need good lawyers or good agents who can read our contracts on our behalf, but we also need to do our own due diligence. Because to be perfectly frank, the four of us sitting here right now, this is a business for us. And you wouldn't go into a business selling something without knowing, what your rights and your obligations are. And it's exactly the same as an author. You need to know your rights, but you also need to know what your obligations are. So I actually have a whole heap of reminders set up on my calendar telling me that on certain days I need to take certain actions so that I can regain those rights from this one particular publisher, because either that or I'm going to be horrendously out of pocket. And I mean, I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket. And for me, it's not something that I'm willing to do. So I'm willing to wait out that time, but it's a decision that I took after I educated myself. I actually signed 2 contracts this morning, and I sat down. Yay! But I actually went through, and I know the clauses I'm specifically looking for, and I go and I read those clauses, and I find out what rights am I signing away. If I've got a publisher and they come to me and they go, we want your movie rights, we want your audio rights, we want your paperback rights, we want your ebook rights, we want this right, that right, the other right, I can guarantee right now I'm not going to sign it, because I'm not interested in giving away every right, and that they may not use it, and it may not be a good decision for me. So, when I get to that point from this stage on, now I will get someone to read those particular clauses for me and to break it down, and then I can go back in the full knowledge that I want to retain this right and that right and the other right. I'm not prepared to just sign everything away. But I mean, as I said too, it's not just publishers. It's also distributors. We know there is one particularly large distributor that closed its doors, and it left a lot of authors, particularly a lot of self-published authors, out of pocket. Now, I know there's a class action, and so I can't name the company or anything like that, but
raise a hand if you're affected.
Actually, I stayed out of it. I was so pleased. But the thing is, again, nobody saw it coming. Nobody knew. This distributor had been around for years. It was huge. So what do we do?
This distributor was selling advertising space 3 days before the alert went out.
That's right. That's right. So you have options. You can join the class action. You could suck it up. You could have taken the payout if you actually got the money, and I'm not going to make a comment on that. But, Keri, would you have joined the class action under those circumstances?
No.
No?
Would have been too expensive. No.
Yep. Suzi?
And
No.
And I lost some money with that particular publisher.
Yep.
And I lost some right at the end as a reader because I put some of my credit onto to be able to buy my own books.
Yeah.
And right up to the last day,
Sorry.
I had the credit. But what they did was they took that money when I started trying to use it to buy some books. They took that money out of my credit card again. So I lost my credit, and they charged me for the books, and I lost the money on selling my books.
Yeah.
But to join the class action, it was, one of those, just suck it up and take it and move on.
Yeah. Sass, you
See,
were going to
that's
say
another
something?
reason why you go wide too.
Absolutely. You don't want to go putting all your eggs in one basket.
Nope.
Sorry, before everything cut out, I couldn't hear anyone. I'm in Suzi's boat. For what I lost, joining the class action, was it worth it? Had I lost 10 times the amount of what I lost, I would have. I would have joined the class action, only because in the space of 3 years, this has happened, 6 times?
Yeah.
It certainly happened quite a few, and we're seeing more of it.
Yeah, so it's, I would have just to set a precedence to say, you can't do this. You can't take on new authors. You can't.
Yeah.
And, there's a leeway between when we publish a book to when we get paid. So I think the standard is 90 days. Some of them are only 30, some of them are 60. I think D2D is one of the best, draft to digital. I think there actually is only a 30-day between when the books are sold and when you're paid. When you're starting to look at your bigger places, like the one that closed down and the one that's got the class action going on, and Amazon and that, there's a 90-day wait between the day you sold that book to the day you got paid. And that's when you start talking big money. So if that same thing that has happened with this happened to Amazon at a certain period for me, oh shit, I would have been in the class action.
Yeah.
I would have lost out on 5 figures. So it's like, worth a couple of $100, even a couple of $1,000 to get back the money that they had owed me during that period. And that's the scary thing, and the thing that's always playing on our minds now that you've got more and more closing their doors. So unfortunately in that aspect, there's not a lot we can do. But do your research. And read bloggers. Bloggers often have the heads up on what is going on. Yeah. They will hear something, and it might only sound, some of it might only sound like gossip, and some of it is pure gossip. But I have found in this industry, at least 85% of the gossip has become realistic. Has become fact, and it is happening. There's another one that closed down and a big house that I closed down just as I was hitting publish on my first book, and I was actually offered a contract to it. I was actually offered to Bing, and I read the gossip and went, nope, and I'm so glad I did, because it is by far the messiest one that has happened.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's still going, and that's 4 years after the fact. I'm pretty sure that case is still going.
And I mean,
it is frustrating. I have to say, you said, there's nothing you can do, and a lot of times there isn't. But the thing that the group and I that were sort of robbed by our publisher, the first lot of us all paid the Hollywood lawyer to stand up for us and fight us, which he did. Then the publisher threatened the Hollywood lawyer that if he kept doing this and trying to get any more people out of their contracts, that they would start blackballing his name, basically. And he's a well-known, he's been a lawyer in Hollywood for 40 years or something. So, I mean, it was an idle threat, but they were that desperate. But in the end, the lot of us that actually got our contracts back and moved out of there said, well, we might have paid up the money for the lawyer up front, but we did at least pave the way that after that, when a lot of other authors reported them to the Romance Writers of Australia, America, New Zealand, England, started reporting them to all the groups, they did kind of back down, and they started letting more authors who'd been in that first lot who were literally robbed, they started letting more out. So you kind of got to stand up for yourself. Even if it doesn't benefit you specifically, at least you're helping all the other authors who are in the same boat.
Yep.
I've found publishers as still in the dark ages a bit, where we used to send off a manuscript in paper form and wait for 6 months, 18 months to hear back from them. And I think they're still stuck in that mindset that this is authors are meek and mild, and that's fine because we can do that to them. Where they're a bit late in the catch up that, no, we can be indie, we can be hybrids. We are starting to learn our rights, and we don't have to dive in with the first publishing house that offers us a contract.
That's right.
And we also talk amongst ourselves now much more than ever used to happen. So we can spread the word. They need to be aware that we're actually talking.
And
business people.
And looking at that too, I mean, and going back to the publishers, there are still publishers out there that go, oh, guess what? We're going to give you a contract, but you have to give us first right on everything that you write. Or, we don't just want this book, we want the entire series. And then they'll get halfway through the
intellectual rights.
But what they'll do is they'll get halfway through a series and they go, oh, it's not making enough money. Let's just, cancel that contract.
Yes.
And it just, why are we doing this to ourselves?
I actually have a friend whose agent suddenly wanted the income from her indie published book along with her traditionally published one that the agent was contracted in.
Yeah.
And, this author said, haven't you read your own contract? There is nothing in there that says I have to give you any money from my indie published books.
Yeah.
But the agent said, where's my money?
Okay,
so they're reading their own contracts.
Let's go hypothetical for a minute. And we've written this really bonza series, and the first book's done really well. The second book's like, the third book's tanked. And books 4, 5, 6, and 7, get thrown out the window. What do we do as authors? What are our options?
Self-publish.
Yes, we self-publish because we can. Because we don't have to be beholden anymore to anybody.
Well, even if in your contract they've got the rights to the next book, once they've refused, you can do what you want with that book.
Yeah.
So, if they've dropped your series, they've got no more rights to that series, even if they've got the next first book.
Yep.
So,
and that's it. So,
now, after we all kind of started waking up, many contracts said, say now that if they haven't used the option on that book within 6 months or 12, it used to be a lot longer, but then it went to 12 months, and then it was down to 6 months. So at least a lot of authors now have the option. If those books haven't been taken up in some way within that time, you yell, jump up and down and say, well, I'll have that back. Thank you.
Yep. And if your spidey senses start tingling when you've got your first book out there, particularly if you've gone with a smaller one and they haven't got it in the clause, you know, that they've got first rights, if your spidey senses are tingling, for God's sake, start listening to them, because quite often your brain is telling you, you know, there's something wrong, this contract is not good for you.
Yeah.
So,
competition contracts.
Oh, yes.
well done.
Yeah. That was my pet peeve. There's a Australian publisher who is currently holding a book contest, and if you read the terms and conditions, simply by entering the contest, you're basically ceding them all rights to your book to do what they want with for perpetual, you know, forever and ever. So, yeah, fair enough. If you win the contest, you can get an agent in and they can hash out the details. But by entering that contest and not winning, you're still ceding them the rights. So you've got to be so careful.
And it's not just publishers. We were talking about this earlier. I've seen a multi-list author who does workshops and all that, and part of the workshop is that you enter your manuscript into a competition, and you've got to pay to go into the competition, and I think it's like only $50 or something like that, which I think is stupid anyway, having to pay to go into a competition. But when you start reading all the clauses, is the moment you hand in that manuscript, they own all rights, perpetual rights to that manuscript. And one of the sub-clauses was that this multi-list author could publish that manuscript under their name with no recognition to you, because you have literally handed over all rights. All rights. And no reimbursement to you. So, yeah, it's... Unless you're a brand new newbie and it's something you're thinking of, trying to get into to see if you can get any recognition, they're not worth it. They are really and truly not worth entering. And read the contracts and read those last clauses at the bottom. They're the ones that get you, because they think by next stage you've gotten through 6 of them that you don't understand, you just get up and just say, yep, I'll do it. No, read every single damn one. And if you don't understand it, don't enter it, or get someone who does understand it to read it for you.
Yeah. So the takeaway is educate yourself. Read every clause. If you don't understand what you're reading, get somebody who does to read it for you. And always be thinking about how you're going to look after yourself, because as authors, that's our job. Any other suggestions, comments? No?
This is a business. Be business smart.
Exactly. Ask questions and demand answers.
In writing,
Yep.
not just verbal. Get this stuff in writing. That's your protection.
And even emails back and forward to publishing houses, it is still written. So if you do have to go to lawyers and stuff like that, those emails that you thought were so insignificant are not. Screenshot them, save them, back them up.
Absolutely. And the same with... Oh, sorry.
That's how we got out of our contracts. We had emails when we'd all ask questions. We pulled them all and said, this is what we asked. This is the answers we were given. You've done something different. We want out.
Yeah.
And as Keri said earlier, as Keri said earlier, every country has different laws. So an Australian publisher, we've actually got some of the toughest laws in Australia for contractual law. So adding a snippy clause after you sign the contract, you will not get away with that in Australia, because you therefore have to sign a new contract. Any changes require a new signature. I know in the States it's not so much that. If they change the contract out after the fact and you're still contracted to them, those new contractual obligations automatically get transferred to the contract you've already signed.
Yeah. And the other thing too is when you get your reversion letters, for Christ's sake, back it up too. Because if you, you know, like if you're going to try and republish that book, you're going to need that letter, and it may come as an email or it might come via snail mail, but make sure you have copies and you have it backed up, because without that, you ain't going to get published nowhere else. So this is such a big topic, so we're actually going to open up down below. If you have a question, please feel free to ask us. Yes, down below. But the other thing too is depending on how many questions we get, we may decide to do.
I gotta.
Not this little black duck. Yeah, so we may decide to do another session on it and actually answer your questions in and how and as we can, remembering, of course, that none of us are lawyers. We've all just been doing this for quite a while. So on that note, we're going to sign out. So it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from my lovely ladies.
Bye.
And we'll see you next week with another episode of In the Chair.